when I think about our donors who really truly are superheroes in every sense of the word, I think about, they have said to me so often, my gosh, if I'm going to be tired for a couple days, or I'm going to be a little sore for a couple days. But I think about the patient on the other end of this. Their life is in the balance. Their life depends on this. And what is it to me to be tired for a few days or to be sore for a few days at the expense of somebody who may not have any other options to live?
Are you curious about discovering ways of making your life better? Then welcome to my podcast. I'm Bob Nickman, and this is The Exploding Human. Listen in while I talk with all kinds of people in the fields of personal growth, health and healing, alternative therapies, psychology, spirituality, environment, and the future. I'm looking for those answers that make life better for everyone. You'll meet cutting-edge practitioners, doctors, artists, filmmakers, business people, and those who have overcome challenges. The brave, the curious, anyone who is out there helping us humans to explore, expand, and explode. Hey, welcome to The Exploding Human. My name is Bob Nickman. My guest today is Jackie Chandonnet. Jackie is the West Coast Development Director for an organization called Be the Match, which is an organization that connects bone marrow and blood stem cell donors with patients to save lives. An amazing organization, and we are going to show you how you can participate and save a life. But first, I'd like to invite you to visit my website, theexplodinghuman.com. There you can listen to episodes, read synopses of the episodes, see photos of my guests, a little bio on myself, and there is a donate button if you'd like to support the show. That will also give you access to some extra content. There is also a YouTube channel, The Exploding Human with Bob Nickman, and The Exploding Human Facebook page. So check those out. As I said, Jackie Chandonnet is the development director here on the West Coast for Be the Match. And it is a nonprofit which has a registry of millions of people who are willing to donate either bone marrow or blood stem cells to help patients heal from blood disease. What I didn't know when we started our talk is that there are 80 different blood diseases. I did not know that. And the inspiration for my connecting with Jackie was my friend Gary Stromberg did have a bone marrow transplant and is a survivor. And we did an episode here on The Exploding Human. It's episode number 31. If you'd like to listen to that, it is his very personal and profound story of getting a bone marrow transplant from a donor in Israel and saving his life. It's a truly great story, and you might want to listen to that either before this one. No, listen to it after. Listen to it after, because you're already on this one. So big thanks to Gary for hooking me up with Jackie. She has a great story to tell. The organization is absolutely fabulous, and you, too, can become a donor with very, very little effort. And I hope you enjoy the talk. This is Jackie Chandonnet. Good morning, Jackie. It's so great to see you.
Hi, Bob. It's great to see you too. Thank you so much for having me today. This is a treat.
Well, it's a treat for me because, as you know, we have a mutual friend, Gary Stromberg, who I've interviewed on this show, and I'll have probably already said the episode number so people can hear it. But your organization helped to save his life. So let's talk about what Be the Match is. And we'll start with that, and then we'll get into some other stuff.
Well, that sounds great. And thank you again for having me and entertaining this conversation today. It's a really important mission. We are doing life-saving work, and I am also friends with your good friend, Gary Stromberg, and he is living, breathing, walking, talking our mission every day of his life, which is just fantastic. Gary was faced several years ago with a blood disease, and his only chance for a cure was due to a perfect stranger on the Be the Match registry halfway around the world that joined our registry and said yes when he got the phone call and donated his stem cells to Gary and saved his life. And gosh, it just doesn't get any more powerful than that. And I'm so, so thrilled that Gary is back to great health, um, living life as he should. And you've got your friend, and that's what we are trying to do at Be the Match. So what we do, Bob, is we are the National Marrow Donor Program, more often known as Be the Match. And so what we do is we manage the world's largest bone marrow and stem cell registry in the world. So what that means is we have this big, huge list of folks that have, at some point in their life, signed up on this list and said, yes, I'd be willing to step up and donate my cells if ever I am found to be a match for somebody in need of a transplant. So we manage that list. And our registry is, we have a little over 20 million people that have signed up over the years. And then we collaborate with the other international registries throughout the world. So we have access to a little over 30 million people on the registry, which sounds like this great big huge number. But at the end of the day, it isn't big enough, because we still have so many people out there that are in need of a transplant that do not have a match on our list. So we have this incredible need to get more folks on the registry. So that is our main initiative. But beyond that, we also are trying very hard to diversify our registry. And what I mean by that is that certain ethnic groups have a better chance of finding a match. So for example, if you are Caucasian, you have about close to an 80% chance of finding a match on our list. If you are African American, you have about a 23% chance of finding a match. The Asian ethnicities are around in the low 40% chance. Same with Hispanic backgrounds. So, clearly we have this huge gap that we're trying to overcome. So we are trying to add more people and continue to diversify that registry.
Is that because of the knowledge that this even exists to certain other groups? Because it seems like, an 80% versus a 20% is huge. Does the Black community not has been made aware of this to the extent that the Caucasian community has? It must be that.
There's a lot of reasons for that, but one of the things that we have found is that there is a lot of misunderstanding around what is bone marrow transplantation, what is blood stem cell transplantation. And to be really honest with you, there is a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear in every ethnic background, because people don't understand really what it means to have a bone marrow transplant. And really, if you think about it, the terminology itself can be frightening. When you think about the word transplant, and I thought this before I worked for Be the Match and knew this intimately, but when a lot of people think of the word transplant, they think, oh gosh, that's a lung, that's a heart, that's a kidney, that's major surgery and cutting into the body, and that's anesthesia and all these things. And certainly not to diminish a bone marrow or blood stem cell transplant, but becoming a donor is, really what we call it is a long specialized blood donation. So when you try to understand a blood stem cell transplant, um, and I should say this too, that about 80% of the time, it is really that long specialized blood transplant. About 20% of the time, it is a bone marrow transplant. So, more than anything, it's a blood stem cell transplant. And what that means is you go into a blood collection or apheresis center, and you are hooked up to a machine. And if you've ever donated, say, plasma in your life, which I did a lot many years ago, you sit in a chair and you are hooked up to an IV on this arm and another IV on this arm, and you sit there for hour or several hours, and essentially your blood is pumped through, and we take out all those good healthy stem cells, and we filter your blood back in. And then after a few hours, you go on your merry way, and you may be tired for a couple of days, um, but you're fine. So it's not this incredibly invasive, um, terribly scary thing that it is sometimes portrayed to be. So I say that because there is a lot of fear there. And then getting back to the diversity question, we have challenges with certain ethnic groups joining because, for example, in the African American community, there's a lot of mistrust in the medical community in general. And that just goes back, decades and decades. If you think to different historical things that have happened in time where there's just a lot of mistrust in the medical field in general, which is perfectly understandable. So we're trying to overcome some of that too, because we have this need, and we're trying to save more lives. So we need more folks to sign up and more folks in some of these underrepresented groups.
What is the difference between a bone marrow transplant and blood stem cells? Because I've donated platelets, which I guess is similar experience. It wasn't hours, but it was a long time. And you're right. I was very tired for about a day and a half. Uh, but bone marrow, you're actually taking the. I'm assuming inside the bone, in the interior of the bone, there's something called marrow, which is soft. I don't
Yeah,
know why I think that. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, and that is taken out. And I don't know how much is taken out. I don't know what part of the body that's gotten. I'm going to assume the spine. I
sure.
could be wrong. You're going to have
Sure,
to
sure.
educate me.
Well, great questions. Um, and you're really right, Bob. So a bone marrow transplant is quite different than the blood stem cell collection, which we just talked about. The bone marrow transplant is a little bit more invasive. So what that means is a donor that's going to undergo that procedure, they will have to undergo anesthesia. It is still an outpatient procedure, but what happens there is that the oncologist and surgeon will go into the pelvic bone with a needle, and they aspirate the bone marrow, which is soft, just like you said. They aspirate the bone marrow out of usually the pelvic bone. And it's the pelvic bone because that's where there's the largest concentration of bone marrow cells. Um, and so they extract all of those healthy cells that they can. And I should mention too that prior to both of these procedures, whether it's a bone marrow transplant or the blood stem cell donation, a donor will have to prep for that. And in that prepping process, they will take a drug for about 5 days prior. And that drug is usually something called Neupogen. And what Neupogen does is it will boost more stem cell growth in the donor in those days leading up to donation so that we can get as many healthy cells as we can for the most, the best benefit to the patient. So it's a really good question because, people are more fearful of the bone marrow extraction process because it is more invasive. But again, at the end of the day, and I've talked to a lot of folks that have gone through this, it is usually you're tired, just like you said when you donated platelets, and thank you so much for doing that. It's feeling tired, and then sometimes people can feel a little achy, particularly with the bone marrow transplant. So, but really, when I think about this, and when I think about our donors who really truly are superheroes in every sense of the word, I think about, they have said to me so often, my gosh, if I'm going to be tired for a couple days, or I'm going to be a little sore for a couple days. But I think about the patient on the other end of this. Their life is in the balance. Their life depends on this. And what is it to me to be tired for a few days or to be sore for a few days at the expense of somebody who may not have any other options to live? Um, and I just can't stress enough just how amazing our donors are, who do step up and say yes and go through with it, because um, there are a lot of people that only have one perfectly matched donor in the entire world, and it's pretty powerful when you think about that. Um, and if you don't mind me sharing, Bob, I could tell you a story about one of our donors.
Great. I love anecdotal.
Yeah, I'd love to share this. I think about this gentleman a lot, and Dan is in his early 70s, and he's been so kind to be a financial supporter of Be the Match, and so I went to meet him a couple years ago, and to thank him and to ask him about his story and his connection to Be the Match. And he started telling me that decades ago, he signed up on the Be the Match registry because he was playing in a softball league at the time. And one of his teammates uh, came down with a blood disorder and needed a transplant. So the team and the community rallied, and everybody signed up on the registry to try to find a match for him. Um, that man did find a match, and it saved his life, which is wonderful. My friend Dan had signed up, and decades later, I think he was 59 years old when he got the phone call that he, in fact, was a perfect match for a woman on the East Coast. And so he, of course, said, yes, my gosh, I want to help. What do I do? And so he went through the procedure and he donated bone marrow, which is, again, the more invasive procedure. And in fact, he had to do it twice because they needed more stem cells for this woman and for her condition. So he went through it twice. Pretty amazing. And he saved her life. They met a year after her transplant. There's a 1-year waiting period when donor and recipient can meet each other. And they met each other, their families met each other, and they developed this friendship, and they ended up traveling together and really getting to know each other. And my friend Dan told me that she lived another 4 years. And she has since passed away, but in that 4 years, she was able to meet and spend time with her grandchildren, which she otherwise would not have been able to if not for Dan. And I'm tearing up telling it because I can't imagine. He was the only person in the world that matched her, and he saved her life and gave her those precious 4 years with her family. Dan told me that some years later, he was traveling for work. He's a salesman and did quite a bit of travel with his work. And he was seated on an airplane next to a gentleman, and they struck up a conversation about what each other does. And they got to chatting, and this gentleman happened to be a pretty big wig at the Hallmark company. And this gentleman asked my friend Dan, hey, what's the most important thing you've ever done in your life? And Dan thought about it for a minute, and he shared this story of donating cells to this woman. And he teared up telling me this. And it just shows you the power of what one human being can do when you care and you do this kind of a thing. And so he told me that a couple weeks later, they parted ways and went on their way, and they exchanged business cards. And Dan told me a couple weeks later, he walked into his office and had this huge box in his office. He opens it up and it's just overflowing with gifts and trinkets and tchotchkes from the Hallmark Corporation. And it was from this guy that he met on the airplane. And he was so touched and moved by Dan's story that he just wanted to do something to thank him for doing such a wonderful thing to save a life. I think about that statement that Dan said, it is the single most important thing that I ever did in my life. And so I say that because, all the folks that are on the registry, when you get that call, please say yes. Please say yes. Please go through with that commitment because it's somebody's life on the line. And it's not just somebody's life, but it's their spouse, it's their kids, it's their grandkids, it's their friends and colleagues. And, it impacts entire families and networks. So it's pretty amazing.
Gary and I were talking about Be the Match and the difficulty in getting, everyone to have the ability to find a match. Mm-hmm. And I said, it would be a great idea, Gary. It just came to me. If everybody who is in the military, that's part of their military service. He goes, oh, that's what they do in Israel. I go, oh, see, I have, and that's how he got his match.
Yes.
Was in Israel. And I thought, you guys must be trying to do something like that. I would imagine, I don't know how you would go about that, but maybe if enough people just hear that idea,
mm-hmm.
The military is about protecting lives, supposedly, not, and we do a good job of it in terms of taking other people's lives. But what about giving lives? Giving people who are have a chance to live because of a bone marrow transplant. What a great thing to be able to do, and that really covers a lot of the areas that you said are underserved. In addition to being a great thing, it covers the military is a pretty diverse kind of an institution.
And you're exactly right. There are certain countries around the world that make it mandatory to once you sign up and join the military, that part of that service is that you automatically sign up on the registry. And what a wonderful thing. And I remember Gary telling me that that is the case in his story in Israel with his donor. And also in Germany, they have the same protocol there in their military. So we actually wind up having quite a few donations that come from Germany because of that. And it's fantastic. And we really hope that we will be able to do that in the US with the military. We have had a long-standing relationship with the military. In fact, our beginnings came with a relationship through the military. And we hope that is the case someday. It's not yet, but we are working on it and hope to get there. We also hope to, at some point, have that as an option when you sign up for your driver's license, just like when you sign up to be an organ donor, when you get your driver's license. But, your point is such a good one because with the military, you've got this huge, broad group of young, healthy folks that are diverse. It's a great opportunity. It's the perfect group for Be the Match to Me recruiting. And another thing I would add too is that we are really changing the way we work with college campuses around the country. Because if you think about the college and university setting, same thing. You have huge groups of young, healthy, diverse kids. I should say young adults. I'm old, so I call them kids. But it's the perfect setting for recruiting to the Be the Match registry. So it used to be back in the day that we kind of had sort of a hodgepodge approach to working with colleges. So it would be that on some campus, a student was diagnosed with a blood disorder. And so Be the Match would come in and set up a registry drive and do our thing and sign people up and then leave. We're taking a much different approach these days. And we are actually developing real relationships with colleges, universities, and particularly the historically Black community universities and colleges around the country, where we have a real presence on campus, where we are there something like every month on campus, educating students, having registry drives, providing that awareness, answering questions, providing the swab kits so they can sign right up there, and really having a real relationship and presence with these campuses, because those are our best opportunities. We know through research and studying the transplant process for years that patients have a much better outcome when the donor is young and healthy, between the ages of 18 and 35. That's your best chance for a full cure. So that's who we need on our registry. So the college setting and the military setting makes perfect sense.
Let's say somebody wants to be a donor and you say there's a swab kit. What do they swab? And that's to get DNA to find the match, I'm assuming. So that's all you really need to do is sign up, given a name and address, social security number, I'm guessing, and get a swab where in your cheek. Where does that happen?
Yep, great question. So it is a super easy process. So when you make that decision to sign up, what you do is it's called a swab kit. And really, it's two long Q-tips. And you take those two Q-tips and you just swab it on the inside of your cheek for a few seconds. And then you pop that into an envelope that we provide and pop it in the mail. And it gets sent to Minneapolis, where our headquarters and our biorepository are. And our fantastic team at the biorepository there, they collect all those swabs and they do their magic, and they do what is called HLA typing. And that's where we test the DNA. It's really your blood protein markers. And so they look at those and they process those and put them into our database. And then you're on the registry. And then whenever down the road, when a patient needs somebody, we run their HLA type through our database and look for a match. So it's a pretty simple, painless, it takes less than a minute to sign up. It's pretty easy. It doesn't cost anything. We cover the costs through our fundraising. And it's an easy thing to do. And then you have joined what we call the greatest waiting list on earth.
How many people a year get these transplants, would you say?
Oh, good question. So in the United States, there's on average around 18,000 people every year that need a transplant. And, I should also say that we help people that have, blood disorders, but there are more than 80 different blood disorders that a transplant can cure. Now that kind of blew my mind when I first started working for Be the Match, because before I worked at Be the Match, I knew about it, but I always thought, oh gosh, they help people with leukemia. I always just thought leukemia, which we do, and a transplant is a cure for leukemia, which is amazing. But I had no idea that there were over 80 different blood disorders that a transplant can cure. So there are things like sickle cell anemia, which is very prevalent in the African American community, that is cured with a transplant. There are so many different diseases that can be cured aside from just leukemia. So, but the need, back to your question, is about around 18,000 every year. And over the years, Be the Match, we have been able to help a little over 6,000 a year. So roughly about a third of the need. So the need is huge. There are still 2/3 of the people roughly that need a transplant that can't get one for various reasons. And a lot of times that reason is there isn't a match on our list, unfortunately. And I'd like to add too that in the past few years, our ability to help more people has been growing, which is super exciting. And in fact, this past year, um, despite the craziness of COVID, which provided us with everyone else huge challenges, we actually helped more patients than ever before last year, to the tune of 6,660 patients and families, more than ever in our history. And that is incredible given all the challenges we faced, like everybody else with COVID. So the need is great. And, our mission is to help, continue to help more and more patients that need it.
I'm assuming that if somebody is listening to this and they want to participate, they can go to the website, Be the Match, BETHEMATCH.org,
Yes.
match.org, and you will send them a swab kit in the mail. That's what I'm assuming. Yes. And you're nodding yes. And then
Yes.
you'll do the swabs, you'll send it back. You're done for a while until somebody calls you or not. And then you still have another chance to go, no, I don't want to. But you can also say, yeah, I do want to. Wonderful. Now, blood diseases. Let's talk about this for a second. Are those genetic and not caused by environmental issues, or is it the whole range? I don't know much about blood disease. I know some stuff is genetic. Now, Gary told me he had what he called a rogue gene. So that was a genetic situation. Are all these situations the same?
They're not. And that's a really good question. And it really varies, Bob, because some of these diseases there are genetic components. And some of them, it can be a genetic hereditary thing that runs in families. And some of them can be caused by environmental factors. In fact, one of our Be the Match board members, who is just an amazing advocate for us, she serves on our board, but she's also one of our volunteer couriers. She's one of the folks that picks up stem cells and hops on a plane and flies them wherever in the world the patient is. And I'd love to talk a little bit more about that process. She's amazing, but she became connected to us because she unfortunately lost her husband. He was diagnosed with, and I can't recall which leukemia it was, but he ended up passing away, and they thought that his leukemia was caused by serving in Vietnam and being exposed to Agent Orange so many years ago. And so there are environmental factors too. So it's a whole host of things, really. But it can, and these things can happen to people just out of the blue, like our friend Gary, just totally unexpected. You're perfectly healthy, feeling fine. And sometimes people discover these things on a routine blood exam.
What an amazing thing that we have this technology and computers to process all this stuff. This is the stuff I love about technology. This is the great stuff.
And it never ceases to amaze me that we can do this. We can, take one person's healthy stem cells and put them in another person and cure them of a disease and save their life. It's mind-boggling when you think about it, and it's amazing. And I think about how far the research has come too, and how different transplantation is today than it was years ago. And we're so much more successful now. We have high cure rates, and I just think about every aspect of it. Just the fact that people are willing to sign up on a list and save a perfect stranger's life. I mean, every part of it is just incredible to me, and it's never not amazing to me.
Yeah.
And I think about our friend Gary, and him sharing his story with us and what he's been through. And I know that you probably know this cool cool little part of his story that I've heard from others as well, that, Gary's donor came from Israel, all the way around the world, perfect stranger. And they had the chance to meet. And what a special meeting that was. And his life has been saved and he's back to great health. And he told me that, going through what he and his family went through, that his daughter and his son signed up on the registry. And lo and behold, sometime after Gary's transplant, he gets a phone call from his daughter one morning. And I'll never forget when he told me this, that he was out walking along the beach, I believe, in Santa Monica, just getting some exercise and fresh air. And he got a phone call from his daughter. And his daughter said, "Dad, you won't believe it, but I just got the call from Be the Match. And I am a potential match for somebody that's in need of a transplant." And Gary told me that when he got that phone call, he fell to his knees on the sidewalk because it just kind of came full circle.
Yeah.
And gosh, it just doesn't get any more powerful than that.
Yeah. He told me that story. I'm teary just hearing it again. I heard it, got teary the first time, and now it's happening again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Let's go with a fun fact of Gary's transplant. He apparently your blood type changes. It becomes the blood type of the donor. So his doctor said to him, I know you've been a vegetarian for 20 plus years, something more, even. He was vegetarian for a really long time. He said, you may find that you will have a craving to eat meat. And Gary goes, "No, I've been a vegetarian for decades. That's just not going to happen." He said on the way home from that appointment or whatever, I pulled into In-N-Out and I got a burger. He goes, "It was delicious." He goes, "It was unbelievable." So obviously the guy in Israel was a big meat eater.
Right. Yeah.
He has a different blood type now.
Yeah. Isn't that something?
Yeah, that was just such a funny little side note.
It really is. And I remember him telling me that he said, "Gosh, that was like the best burger I ever ate. It was just delicious." And he's been eating burgers ever since. So I forgot to ask him. I should ask him if he ordered it with the animal sauce on it.
Animal style, they call it.
The animal style. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, isn't that something? It's crazy. And it changes your blood. And it can be the funniest thing because you can, in fact, acquire some different traits from your donor. And that can be one of them, different food cravings and those kinds of things. Another thing that patients say sometimes is that they notice that their hair can change. They might have had straight hair before, but after they get curly hair or a different texture to their hair. Sometimes I've heard that allergies you can acquire or lose certain allergies. So I know a lady in the San Francisco Bay Area that had a transplant, and it used to be that she was allergic to dogs and she could never have a pet dog. And after her transplant, she found that she had lost that allergy. And she and her husband now have an adorable little dog who is like their child.
I wonder if there's any sort of psychological changes too. Like it's like, "Oh, I used to hate the color red. Now it's my favorite color." I just wonder, there must be some subtle stuff because obviously the blood has an intelligence to it. And each blood type probably has certain characteristics, not just in, the mechanical kind of things of cravings, but maybe some other stuff. I find that really interesting. I mean, I don't know. I wish they could, maybe put in some something for stupidity so we can get a lot and compassion. Let's get rid of stupidity and add compassion in this process. Can we do that too?
Yeah, I could do well with some of that too. We should work on that, right?
Now, you're obviously very passionate about this. What were you doing before this, and how did you segue into making this your career? Because let's find out about you, because you're obviously a very special person.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Bob. That's very sweet of you. And thanks for asking. It's interesting. I have had a kind of a roundabout career path to getting here. A million years ago, I actually started my career in broadcasting and went to school for broadcasting. So I started out as a news anchor reporter at a teeny tiny little TV station in Michigan. And I kind of accidentally got into fundraising because I was doing a lot of health reporting at that TV station, which put me in the local hospital all the time. Got to know everybody at the hospital, and that hospital was talking about starting a foundation. They wanted to establish one, and they wanted to raise a bunch of money to build a new hospital. And we got to talking, and one thing led to another, and I left the world of broadcasting, and they took a real chance on a gal with zero fundraising experience. So I feel very, very lucky because it was an incredible experience and I just loved it. So I spent years at that hospital and then went on to do some consulting, worked with other hospital foundations. And then years ago now, I worked in hospitals and the hospital setting for so long that I really was getting drawn to patient care. And so I left the world of fundraising for a while and I went and trained and worked as a radiation therapist for a few years, which is working side by side, treating cancer patients with their radiation treatments every day. And gosh, I'll tell you, it really left an impression on me. I mean, there's nothing like being bedside with somebody who's facing cancer, often the scariest time of your life, and being able to be there with those patients whom I'll never forget, and not just treating them, but holding their hand, being there and offering hope and support and love and encouragement and all those things. After several years of that, really wanted to get back into the world of philanthropy because I missed the long-term relationships that you establish with people and people that want to give and make an impact in the world with their own financial ability and make a difference is amazing. And I was kind of missing that. So I came back to the world of philanthropy and landed at Be the Match 3 years ago. And I'll tell you, I feel like it is a perfect fit for me. And I often think back to my time as a radiation therapist because I think that having that direct experience, being side by side with patients every day, has really lent itself well to this work because I think I can relate a little bit in a different way than if I hadn't had that
Yeah,
experience.
there's a deeper understanding of what someone is going through rather than just this is a nice thing to do. You know the
Yeah.
impact.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I feel so grateful that I've had that experience. I think it only enriches my work in raising funds for our mission at Be the Match. It's very gratifying work, that's for sure.
Do you have corporate donors? Money. I'm talking about money now, not.
Yeah.
I'm talking. Like how do
Yeah.
you? Obviously, there's individuals can donate, and probably certain organizations. I don't know if you get any government funding.
Mhm.
Are there certain
Yeah.
corporations that are just really stepped up and helped with this? Let's give them a shout out because if people are doing great stuff, well, they should be recognized for that. I believe.
Absolutely. We have all of those things. And I laugh because at Be the Match, we have to, when we talk about the word donor, it's a little different for us because a donor, usually means a stem cell donor. Where in other capacities where I've worked at fundraising, a donor is a financial donor.
Mhm.
So we try to call our donors, our financial donors, benefactors. So it's a little difference there. But you're right. We have individuals and families that step up with incredible gifts to support what we do, and we also have a lot of corporations that have also stepped up and continue to step up. I work primarily with individuals and families, but I often collaborate, of course, with my colleagues that work on the corporate relationships. And so, gosh, there's so many, and a few that I'll rattle off here. So, especially in this last year with COVID, we've had a lot of challenges with logistics and getting cells from A to B, which we have to do because a life is at stake.
Mm-hmm.
So when country borders are closing down, when flights are being canceled around the world, we can't stop doing what we do. So I'll give a shout out to Lockheed Martin that really stepped up this last year and helped us secure flights and private jets to help us continue moving forward with getting cells from A to B, which is just huge. Also, Polaris helped us a great deal in that regard. Just an incredible undertaking this past year because that was one of our biggest challenges. LabCorp is a big partner with us, and they support us to a great degree financially and also helping us process the swab kits. For getting folks onto the registry. We're always on the lookout for more support from individuals and from corporations.
Well, hopefully this podcast will inspire some people to go to Be the Match and sign up as donors.
Yeah, and thank you for the opportunity. The awareness is huge, so we'd sure appreciate this publicity. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for the work you're doing and the service and the kindness and the compassion. It's the best part of life is helping other people. It's the most satisfying, as your anecdotal story mentioned. That was that gentleman's most important thing he's ever done, and it doesn't take that much. Just a little bit, tiny bit of effort.
If people want to help, there are so many ways that you can help. Signing up on the registry is very easy. Like we talked about, we send you the kit, you just do the swab and send it back. So please, if you're out there listening, please consider joining us. And one step further, please say yes when you get that phone call. Also, if anybody is interested in volunteering with Be the Match, we have tons of ways that people can volunteer. If somebody's interested in holding a registry drive at your workplace, on your college campus, in your community, we are always looking for those opportunities. Perhaps you might want to help us fundraise. We have an awesome function called Team Be the Match, where you can set up your own fundraising page. You can challenge your friends. You can coordinate a walk run type of activity or some kind of a special event. So you can help that way. And then for individuals and families that want to make an impact, please call me. I feel so honored to be able to work with the individual and families that I do. And gosh, getting to be a small part of helping a family consider their philanthropy and the impact they want to have and making a gift that is going to save lives is just, there aren't words to describe. When folks sign up on the registry, it costs Be the Match $100 to put someone on the registry, to do that HLA typing and get them in our database. And we raise money for that. And so, when you think about, gosh, I can make a gift of $25,000. And that means that we can add 250 people to the registry. I mean, that's real tangible. I mean, that's 250 chances to save a life. I mean, that's really compelling.
You just said people can call you? Are you serious?
Oh, gosh, yes.
What's the number then? Let's lay it out here. This is not your personal cell phone, I hope, because we don't want you to get bombarded with personal calls.
Yeah. Well, why don't I'll give you my the email address is probably the easiest thing to do.
Yes, send Jackie an email.
Yes, send me an email. My email address is jchandon@nmdp.org. And that stands for the National Marrow Donor Program.
Okay, and you can have direct contact with her, and
yes,
and add in there that you heard her on this show, so I can feel good about myself too.
yes, the Exploding Human. We're so honored to be a part of your show. So,
well, thank you.
Thank you enough for this opportunity, Bob.
It's nice to be able to do something so immediate and direct to help people, not just concepts and theories. And this is like a direct thing people can do. So And if you decide to register and become a donor, I will be your best friend. How about that? That's my
I love it.
incentive.
I love it.
And if you
That's
already have a
wonderful.
best friend, I'll be your second best friend.
There you go. You can never have too many best friends, right?
That's right. Well, thanks so much. I appreciate it. This was a great talk, and keep up the good work.
You bet. Thank you so much, Bob. And I just little shout out to our friend Gary. Thanks for connecting us and offering this opportunity. And for Gary, I just could not be any happier that he is healthy. That is the most important thing, that he's healthy.
Yep. Love Gary. How do you not
Yes.
love
Love you,
Gary?
Gary. I
Yeah.
know it's impossible.
Me and Jackie, we love you, Gary.
We love you, Gary. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Exploding Human. Please check out the website, theexplodinghuman.com, the YouTube channel, The Exploding Human with Bob Nickman, and there is a Facebook page for The Exploding Human. Big thanks to Jackie Chandonnet, and don't forget to listen to episode 31 with Gary Stromberg, who is a survivor of a bone marrow transplant. It's a great story. Thanks for listening in. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.